Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. I'm new here to this space, but I think I got a decent amount of stuff to offer. Let's get right into it. Today we will be painting a Spider-Man statue, and let's get it.
Okay guys, so first off here we're going to start on the base. Due to its size I had to print it into 4 pieces, but I like to use this 2-part epoxy to fill in all the gaps and just make that base more seamless as if it was one piece. That epoxy clay does a good job of hiding the seams. You just mix it 1-to-1, work it in, and I spray it down with some 99% IPA, and you can blend it, and that makes it pretty smooth. You can't really tell that I fixed it with clay, but yeah. Here's a nice, good look at the statue before priming. I just assembled the whole thing to see what it would look like, and I think it looks great. You can see here on like the hands and feet and the head, I'd use a different color of resin because of the size of the statue. I just didn't have enough. But once you prime it, what's underneath isn't really going to matter. You're not really going to be able to tell. But here you can see I used an automotive primer to just paint that and make it all one color. And then we'll take this white paint and we're going to do something called a zenithal. It's basically where you take like a thinned down white paint, such as an ink or just white paint with some water, and you spray it from the top, and it makes the illusion that there's a bright light directly above your statue, similar to kind of the sun. It's really going to give you those highlights and shadows that you would want. Because airbrush paints are slightly opaque, you're going to be able to see through them slightly. So you'll see really those highlights and shadows that you established with your zenithal. That's why it's super important to get that nice and covered. And here we're going through on the base, pulling all the tentacles off, and I'm really trying to get that smoke nice and bright so we can do some layering here in a second. Really just trying to cover it, get it nice and bright. And here we'll take some yellow and go on top of that white. And we're taking it in several layers here to really build some depth on this smoke, this explosion. Here's some Tamiya clear orange. Thin that down quite a bit with some thinner, and it'll really blend that yellow together. And just go super hard on some of those top points. It'll really make it pop. Now we're going to take this red ink by Vallejo and go right on top of all that orange and just the most intense spots to really make that smoke pop and make it look like it's blowing up. Moving on from that, we're going to take this gunmetal gray. And I took the airbrush down, like the pressure, I took it down quite a bit and thinned down the paint a lot to minimize overspray on the smoke. Just go in really close with just light pressure, and we're just trying to get some good coverage on those tentacles. And then we're going to go into the brush to really hit those spots that the airbrush doesn't reach. And again, just being really careful not to hit those flames we just spent all that time painting. Now we're going to grab all the rest of the tentacles from the model, and with that same gunmetal gray, just spraying all of them, making them nice and metallic. This process took several hours due to the just sheer amount of tentacles on this model. And my airbrush kind of sucks and kept clogging. But, you know, you do what you can do. Eventually, later on, I did end up replacing this airbrush because I let paint dry in it and I just could not get it cleaned out. Don't do that. It sucks. Now we're going to go in with some silver and just do some dry brushing on all the metal edges of the tentacles to make them look a little more worn, not so brand new. This was also time consuming, but it really made those tentacles pop. You can see here on the footage, it just did a great job of making them look old and worn. Here we're going to go in with some black and just paint all those joints, the articulation points. It really helps the tentacles not blend into one another and pop. Then we'll take a little bit more of that silver with a nice small brush and we're going to paint all these rivets individually. Just again to add some more depth and make it look a little bit better. Now finally on to the best part, we're going to paint Spidey. We're just going to go in with a little bit of red and just start from the top, work your way down. On this model specifically, I tried to keep the paint coming just from above. It really helps establish those highlights and shadows. Red really covers a lot better over lighter colors, so that's why the zenithal is so important. It really does help give the illusion that there's a light above the model. And here, now that the red is all covered, I take some yellow paint and mix it in to really help those highlights pop. It's going to add more contrast, and it's going to make the lights more intense where they would be hitting the very top points of the statue. Okay, now that the red's all done, moving on to the blue. This is where that paint that dried in my airbrush really bites me. You can see me just struggling with this. The paint's not coming out. Don't do this. Just clean your airbrush when you're done with it. I literally had to go buy a new one because I just couldn't make it work. But regardless, it's pretty much the same process as painting the red. And you can see me here taking the legs off. This is why it's important to not glue your model until you're done painting. It really helps the painting process so that I don't get overspray all over the red. It may have been easier to mask it, but I really don't care. That takes too much time, and I just don't have time for that. Like right here would have been way better, but I'll just stick with lowering my airbrush pressure and just being really careful. I finished painting that off screen with a brush. Now onto the front, we're going to paint the Spidey logo on the front with some black, just being really careful not to get black on the red because that's really hard to cover back up. Just take your time, go slow, use a small brush. And a lot of times you can see me here like using my pinky for stability. That really helps get into those tight spots without getting paint on things you don't want it on. Moving on to the back, like I said earlier, red covers way better over a lighter color, so I'm just going to go over this entire logo with some white paint so that when I eventually come through and put the red on, it'll really pop and stand out from that blue behind it. And again, just go slow, be careful. Don't get paint where it doesn't need to go. And then here on all this piping on the suit, I just took the blue that I used to paint it, added a little bit of white paint to make it a nice bright blue, and then we're just going to very carefully go along the piping to make it stand out so you can really see that contrast on the suit. Just as before, take your time, go slow. Don't rush it. There's no point. This is art. The eyes are the one place where I actually took the time to mask it because Spidey's lenses just need to be pure white. It's like the most defining feature on his mask, and it's the one thing you're going to look at. And then we're going in here with some black to really highlight those lens surrounds. It really makes that white pop and breaks it away from the red. It's that classic Spidey look. And right here is probably the biggest mistake I made on this entire model, and that was thinking that I could do these web lines the easy way with a Sharpie. And I went on for way too long trying to make this work. It was not worth it, and I wasted like 30 minutes when I could have been painting. Eventually, I'll realize my mistake, and I'll just grab the old paintbrush and paint. You can see me constantly fiddling with it, trying to get it to work, and I should have just given up at this point. But I'm still going. Finally, right here, I realized the error of my ways, and I got out a nice fine paintbrush and some black paint. And this is probably the absolute longest process of my entire life. I think this was about 5.5 hours of painting, just doing these black lines on the suit. I condensed the footage down a lot to just basically his chest and his head, because this video would have been hours long. There's no point. You guys don't want to see that. So it's the same process. Just take it slow. Use a nice thin brush. And just put on like a movie or something in the background, you know? Just get going, man. Get into that flow state. Okay, we're nearing the end here. I grab my red, and now that the white's dry, I'm going to go over it with some nice red. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. We are right here at the end, just putting the finishing touches on. Thanks for sticking around. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'm going to have videos coming out probably, I'm going to try and hit once a month, but more if possible. Let me know what you guys want to see next in the comments. And with that, we're finally on to the B-roll.